Disgusting business practices like non-competes, high drug prices, and difficult to cancel unwanted subscriptions are common tactics used by businesses that have gone unchecked for decades. In Lina Khan, we finally have someone willing to fight against these pigs. She's done more work to fight against anti-consumer practices in the last 2 years than the FTC has done in a decade. In 2021, she got a quick win by enforcing right to repair, and Apple finally started using the same charger as the rest of the world, and even has a replaceable battery. The world is truly healing, but I won't give Lina full credit for this because the EU has been fighting for this way before her. But it definitely helps when multiple countries apply pressure on the same issue. Lina also didn't just stop at phones and electronics, she went for the real big dogs, the McDonald's ice cream machine. Franchise owners can now repair their ice cream machine on their own without getting their kneecaps blown off by the clown man. From that win, she jumped right into the deep end and fought against the Microsoft and Activision Blizzard buyout. The FTC argued that with Microsoft owning Xbox, Game Pass, and now Activision Blizzard, they would essentially have a monopoly over the gaming space. So Microsoft now had to explain to the FTC why the company that they're spending billions on isn't even that good. In fact, Blizzard needs a bailout after becoming a sexual harassment farm and killing Overwatch just to re-release it and call it Overwatch 2. Microsoft promised they wouldn't make anything exclusive to the Game Pass and would be super hands-off and let the company run as they wish. So after a 4-year battle with the FTC and the EU, they allowed the merger to go through, and literally the next day, Microsoft goes back on everything they said and lay off 1,900 employees from Blizzard. Even though this wasn't the best outcome, it shows the rest of the world that the FTC is no longer going to sit back and let these mega corporations create monopolies whenever they like. Microsoft had to go through a 4-year-long legal battle to make the merger happen, and this will deter other companies from trying to do the same. And for the next time, the FTC has set a precedent that merger should not happen, because these companies will go back on their word as soon as the merger is approved. But Lina Khan didn't just stop there. She even pushed back against the grocery store merger between Kroger and Albertsons. The FTC released a report explaining that grocery prices haven't just gone up because of inflation. They've also gone up because stores are looking for a higher profit margin. From 2020 to now, we've had massive inflation, there's no denying that. But inflation hasn't gotten to the point where food prices should be going up 100 to 200% in 4 years. Most of the price increase is from stores increasing their revenue and disguising it as being forced to raise their price because of inflation. And it's a good thing that the FTC is finally calling it out. One of the biggest wins Lina was able to get was against subscriptions, more specifically trying to cancel subscription. Starting next year, every subscription-based company has to make canceling just as easy as subscribing. Instead of trying to make a good product that people will come back for, these companies have made the experience to cancel as miserable as possible. You want to cancel your subscription? Good luck finding it under 8 different tabs, into pressing cancel 5 times with the button location moving each time, into writing a 500-word essay on why you're a piece of shit for canceling your kid's Disney Plus account. Subscriptions have been around for a decade, and it's crazy to me that we needed someone like Lina Khan, who's considered radical by most politicians, to put an end to a practice that is a unanimous net negative on consumers. Now, for her magnum opus, Lina fought against something that affects more than 30 million Americans: non-competes. Non-competes are contracts that you sign with your employer to make sure that you don't get hired by their competition and tell them all your company secrets, or starting your own business to compete against the company that hired you and trained you. It makes sense to sign these contracts for high-level executives because they could genuinely kill a company if they told their competitors confidential information. But this has gotten so out of hand that Walmart might start making their cashiers sign non-competes. I don't think I need to explain how bad this is for the employees. It makes it impossible for them to leave toxic work environments, and now that promotions are basically dead, the only way to get better pay is to switch to companies, which are also hindered by non-competes. These contracts even force doctors to get into a different practice, because hospitals don't want someone they train to start their own practice and steal patients. I'm sorry, but a hospital doesn't have a unique way they diagnose pneumonia. There's no special technique that they need to gatekeep, or their entire business might fall apart. All this does is alienize doctors and stop them from creating specialities to compete against these bloated hospitals. The FTC was willing to concede, and they agreed that non-competes are fine to sign for executives, because losing them could actually do some harm to the company. So now there should be absolutely zero downsides to banning non-competes. It increases competition, gives workers more options, and it should, in the long run, give them better pay. Sadly, even something as positive as this ban got overturned a month before it was set to launch by some judge in Texas. It's shocking how gridlocked America is when it comes to helping its workers, even in the smallest possible ways. But Lena didn't just stop at fighting for doctors. She also fought for the patients by suing middlemen that milk the healthcare system dry. She launched a lawsuit against United Health, CVS, and Cigna, which are the three largest middlemen in healthcare. These companies are known as PBMs, and they are responsible for buying up drugs from the people that make the drugs and selling them to the patients through their insurance and pharmacies. The incentive for these PBMs is to buy the drugs as cheap as possible from the drug makers and sell them as expensive as possible, and everything in between becomes the profit that they make. So what these middlemen end up doing is they buy up massive amounts of a drug, let's say insulin for example, and they ask the drug maker for a cheaper price, and the drug makers have no choice but to oblige the PBMs because they buy such large quantities. This is actually a good thing because the PBMs can now sell the drug for a cheaper price and pass on the profits to the patients who are in dire need of cheaper insulin. But PBMs decided, what if we just don't make the drug cheaper and continue to sell it at a massive markup, even though they bought it at a discount and they just end up keeping the profit. This is the primary reason the FTC is suing the three biggest PBMs. Luckily, there's a really easy way to stop them from exploiting this loophole, and that is by not buying name brand insulin and just buy the generic version, which is far cheaper. But these disgusting pigs even have that covered, because all three of these PBMs in the lawsuit are owned by an insurance company. So it's in the best interest of the insurance company to favor the drug sold by their PBMs. If the only drug covered by insurance are the uber expensive ones, then patients never have a chance to buy the generic version of the drug, which means that PBMs control basically all aspects of drug pricing, and they're abusing this power as hard as possible just to make themselves richer. This is one of the most important battles the FTC is fighting for consumers whose lives depend on drugs like insulin. But this is most likely going to be a decade-long battle because of how entrenched these middlemen are in the American healthcare system. Every single company Lina Khan is fighting against knows that their antitrust case is going to take multiple years to get sorted, so they've adopted the strategy of just waiting it out. Unfortunately for Lina Khan, her tenure as the head of the FTC is not permanent, and the president will decide if she gets to stay or kick her out and let someone else run the FTC. From everything I've shown you, and plenty of smaller things that I couldn't put in this video, this queen has unequivocally been a positive for the American consumer, so I'm sure a president who is voted in by the working class would love to keep Lina as the head. Wrong. In fact, Lina is hated by both parties, and everyone who is anyone wants her kicked out, because the reality is, the average person only provides one vote out of 70 million to their party. But a billionaire can fund the entire campaign, and all the party has to do is kick out a fairly unknown person out of their office. Maybe there was a chance she would stay in office if Kamala Harris would have won, because Lina was appointed by the Liberal Party. But now that Trump is in office and appointed the literal richest person in the world as the head of the Department of Efficiency, I can't imagine Lina will be around for too long. It's funny how this manlet, who is notorious for always launching products late, barely functioning, and over budget, is now running a department that gets to decide how to make the government more efficient. I'm sure Elon won't use his power to his own benefit and get rid of important people who are trying to make sure that these megacorps play fairly. The Republican Party is the party that's supposed to fight for the little guy against big pharma and big tech, but now they're the party that's gonna fire the one person that's been fighting for the consumer. The most past heads of the FTC have done is force Facebook to change their name to Meta and then leave to get a cushy job in Google. The goal for these people was never to do their job, it was to network enough so that once the president that appointed them eventually loses, they can get hired at big tech by showing these monopolies exactly how to hide from regulation from the next person that will run the FTC. Lina Khan didn't pan into megacorps, and she did her job better than anyone before her, and for that, she gets rewarded by being forced to step down and most likely is going to have a hard time finding a new job. It's very disappointing that the person that actually did their job gets punished. And after seeing what happened to Lina, I doubt anyone else is going to try to push back against these companies.